Okay. I don't know how to do it without licking the damn things. Okay. My grandma Libby, she taught me.
Notice I kept my mouth shut right there.
Here we go. Praying that some kind of miracle had occurred and the beer stench would be gone, I realized that was impossibly wishful thinking. As my cab turned the corner off Broadway, the club coming into view, I saw the Jam Girl marquee in place for the first time. My name in lights on Broadway. Not exactly as I'd imagined, but it still made my head spin. Bobby V, already on duty, was guarding the ropes. He was, without a doubt, the best doorman in the business. I wouldn't have considered doing a night without him. Good one. Chatting for a moment about the guest list. Okay, Stanny. Chatting for a moment about the guest list, there was nothing except now. I had to tell him. He knew exactly how to build a night, how many people to let in, how many to hold online, who was to be kept waiting, and who was to let pass. He was gifted. What he brought to the evening was as important as any of the elements. As I entered, Frankie was down on his knees, bless his soul, smelling the rug. Layering Lysol and shampoo, it was an improvement, but it was what it was. Deodorizers hung all over the place. It smelled like a great big taxi cab. Workers were everywhere cleaning and readying for the night. Anthony was setting the lights, pink-hued and low, exuding a flattering glow. Vincent, spinning discs for the crew while preparing his first set, had everyone singing along and dancing as they worked. The vibe was already way cool. I slipped into the VIP room to catch a moment alone, take a few deep breaths, and a toke on my one-hitter. It could only improve the smell. The place looked far more festive than usual. Frankie had placed fresh flowers and candles in strategic locations, which added a welcome touch. It was very dark, in a good way. There were lots of small tables with couches and comfortable chairs around. I hadn't spent any time in here, having barely spent any time at the club at all, except for visiting Vincent once on his birthday. But I suspected tonight might be different. The VIP room offered a perfect respite from the masses that I prayed would be filling the outer rooms. Vincent had already queued up a long play reel-to-reel with a perfect mix, set at optimum volume for conversation and mood. Making my way over to the bandstand, Brian Feld, who I had chosen to lead the jam, both for his musical gifts and his extraordinary knowledge and connections, was in the midst of a sound check. Well thought of and respected by the players, he filled me in on the night's invited guests. Greg Allman and Ace Frehley had promised to stop by, as well as dozens of the best players in New York. Almost every musician that had ever played for me at Rock Bar and IDO had promised to sit in. Aside from the debut of Andy Stone's After Midnight Rock Jam, Pastor Pete and his disciples were opening the show. Certain crowd pleasers, they had legions of their own fans and the uncanny ability to win over the entirety of any room they played. No matter what else happened, whoever came or didn't, the music was assured. We were gonna rock. The first set was The first set was scheduled for 10 p.m., followed by the Moretti Brothers' new band, Pack of Cats, at 11. Rock and roll never begins on time, but Pete had such a loyal following, I trusted the club would begin to fill up a little before 10. Sure enough, by 9:30, they began arriving. By 10:15, there were at least 100 people waiting for the show. At 10:30, when the disciples hit the stage, it was closer to 200 people. Before the set ended at 11:15, it was more like 400. The number doubled yet again as the jam began. The place was packed. Lenny arrived with Barry just before Pete took the stage. It was still quiet enough for us to all have a little drink and conversation. Very subtly, Lenny began staking his claim. He was standing just slightly in front of me and to my right, preventing anyone else from getting too close. It was a little awkward, but not nearly as uncomfortable as it became when Mary Ann told me that Jim Fellows was in the house. Then, as if on cue, Vincent came out of the booth when the band took over. There they were, all in one room at the same time, just as predicted. Lenny, with hair like mine, Barry, the medium, Vincent, the dark devil, Jim, the gray-haired, and Pastor Pete, the fair. Damn, that Teresa was good. Since Jim was a professional contact, it was my duty to make him feel welcomed. As I approached him from behind, Steve gave him a high sign, tipping him to my presence. Turning around, Jim kissed me smack on the lips. It didn't go unnoticed by Lenny, Barry, or Vincent, who were all simultaneously staring at me. Shit. Score. It was great for Jim to see the success of the night, and it was terrific for Vinny and Lenny to see that I had other admirers. Eventually, they acknowledged that they recognized each other and were chatting. Oh, to be a fly on that bar. Making my way over to them, I put an arm around Barry and the other around Vincent, while winking at Lenny. After a lifetime of being at the mercy of men, this was a feast for the starving. I see you've met. Vinny, did you know that Barry and I went to school together? We go way back. Vincent laughed. No, really, 6th grade. I knew in that moment he was never going to use that line on me again. It was the early days of MTV. 2 of the original VJs showed up at the exact same time as the paparazzi. The page 6 suggestion that Pandora might pop in had helped bring the crowds and the press. Now that it was leaked, I was certain she wouldn't come within a mile of the place, but it had served its purpose. The hype was sufficient. Did I really need to see Pandora and Vincent together? I was not to be so tortured this night. I watched Lenny and Barry goofing around at the bar. Barry was clearly enjoying all the young, scantily clad eye candy, while Lenny was stealing glances at me. Every time Jim Fellows came near, I could feel Lenny's steely gaze. Without knowing anything, he sensed everything. The cash registers were ringing like one-armed bandits on a senior citizen day trip to Atlantic City. Frankie looked as happy as Frankie could look. He was not the most expressive fellow, but he did appear pleased. He was over by the DJ booth most of the evening, chatting with Vinny, who was in all his glory. In between sets, Vinny had the crowd on their feet. When the bands came on, he slipped into the VIP room and spun there for the special guests, which soon included a gaggle of rock stars, past and present. Greg Allman and Ace Frehley had arrived. Martha Quinn, one of the original MTV VJs, Stuttering John, then of Stern fame, as well as the guys from Danger Danger, were holding court in the VIP room. The girls were swarming, not sure who to hit on first. Jim had been waiting for the disciples to take the stage. He wanted to get a handle on what I called a sure thing. They did not disappoint. Pete's fans knew all the words to all his songs and acted them out in a sort of Rocky Horror sort of way. Even first-timers were singing. It was a very powerful audition. I could see Jim and Steve were taking it all in, especially the legions of young, eager girls jumping and jiggling to the music. As soon as the set ended, they beelined straight for me. Jim took my hand. I like it. I like the whole thing. Great night, babe. We'll talk. I have to get back downtown. Would you walk me outside? I couldn't help but notice Lenny watching. Shrugging my shoulders, I mouthed, "Be right back," as I led Jim and Steve towards the door. When we got to the entrance, Jim pulled me outside and gave me a big, wet kiss right on the lips. Startled, I laughed. "Not the reaction I was expecting," he said. "Not the goodbye I was expecting," I answered. "A few people might be surprised," Steve added with a wink. "What does that mean?" I asked. "Nothing," Jim said adamantly, shooting a Steve a what the fuck. "I'll call you tomorrow. Enjoy your night. You deserve it. You done good, kid." Trying to pull me towards him, I backed up. "Easy, cowboy. I have to get back in there. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thanks for coming." Pecking them each on the cheek, I shot a questioning look to Steve, who shrugged as I headed back inside. Bobby V bowed low as he opened the door for me. There were at least 50 people waiting online, chatting him up, trying to get in. We were cooking. Before I'd gotten to the main room, I ran into Lenny, looking intently at the poster. I did it, Lorna. Intently at the poster of the night's lineup. Being doggedly pursued was completely foreign to me, but I was enjoying my unease. Taking Lenny's arm, I led him into the VIP room, now packed. Introducing him around, I began to relax. Pack of Cats was setting up. I was doing my best to encourage them to hurry before the momentum was lost. Pete was schmoozing his fans and having his girls work the crowds, getting names and addresses for their mailing list. Bobby V must have picked that exact moment to loosen his hold, as the club instantly got more crowded.